Awesome. So today I am here with Kenny Cheeseman from Zion City Church. How's it going today, Kenny?
It is going fantastic, man. Doing well. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, great to hear that. And, I'm curious, could you tell me a bit about, like, hey, what called you into ministry and how did you eventually find your way to Zion City?
Yeah, man, great question. Yeah, I was called to ministry when I was 15 years old at a
Awesome.
student ministry camp in Prescott, Arizona. So, I mean,
Okay.
I don't remember what exactly that was, 2004,
Hmm.
roughly, when I got called into ministry. 6 months later, I ended up getting kicked out of my house. So I didn't hear it clearly, but um,
Hmm.
the circumstances led me to move to Florida with my
Oh, wow.
mom, and I found a good church that kind of brought me in and just started to foster. I knew that I wanted to be in ministry. I knew that I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to do that. I was the only one
Hmm.
at this point in the family I was living with now that was saved, and so I
Hmm.
just threw myself in the church and did anything I could. Finished high school and tried to go to school, tried to go to a college for ministry, but didn't have
Hmm.
the funds to stay. So came back,
Hmm.
started an internship at the church I was part of, and that's how I got into kids ministry. And so
Okay.
from there, a few years later, after being in kids ministry, I moved to Michigan as my first full-time pastor job at a church in
Oh,
Michigan.
wow.
And then almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I moved to Tucson, where I transitioned over to Victory at the time, now Zion
Hmm.
City, to be the
Okay.
children's pastor at our Flowing Wells campus. And now I'm at our Oro Valley campus. And so, yeah, just hit 10 years of full-time ministry. I've been in kids ministry for
Wow.
about 17 years. And
Hmm.
yeah, man, so that's I just kind of ever since I was 15, I knew that I was going to be a pastor and I just pursued it.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear, and really went all over the country.
Yeah, man.
Starting at Prescott on the other side of
Yeah,
Arizona from
dude.
where you are now to
Yep.
Florida to Michigan. So that's
Yeah.
that's awesome. And I'm curious since you got inspired at a young age and then entered serving through an internship and stuff, and eventually led that into full time ministry. Like, how does that kind of change the way you think about cultivating those internships and opportunities and stuff for people, ages probably 15 to 20 something at your
Oh man,
church?
man, it is super important to get involved, whether you're connected in some form or way. But if there's a call in your ministry, whether it's in music ministry, as a pastor,
Mhm.
kids, students, man, get plugged in, serve at your local church, and ask a lot of questions. When I interned, man, I was doing anything from maintenance of the yard to
Mhm.
cleaning pools
Yeah.
to baptism setup, chair setup, to
Mhm.
eventually like learning how to set up for kids, how to put together a kids lesson plan, how to lead worship in kids. There was a lot
Mhm.
of components that I learned just from volunteering. And then
Mhm.
as I added biblical knowledge and partnered that with experience, it
Mhm.
just opened up more opportunities for me to do that. I mean, if you can be an internship, do it. If anything, it'll make clearer the path that God has for you. Because I think
Yeah.
oftentimes, at least for myself, I went into it going, I know that I want to be in ministry, but I don't really know what that means. So sure, let's figure
Mhm.
this out. And it just became refined and clearer and allowed me to um, excel in a very specific skill set with kids and stuff.
Mhm.
And every leader is different. I mean, we had
Absolutely.
for several years at this church a great college internship program for anyone trying to get in any form of ministry, whether you wanted to be a senior pastor, a campus
Mhm.
pastor, student ministry, or kids, or worship. There was an internship track for you that you could be a part of. And so every church does it a little bit differently, but if that's an option and you can do it, make it happen.
Awesome. Yeah, well, completely agree there. And yeah, great to hear you are doing a lot to provide those opportunities to the upcoming leaders of our next ministry generation. So that is spectacular. And, I'm curious, like, what are just some of you mentioned volunteering there a bit. So, like, aside from, staff on your team, what are some ways you found are the best ways that you've seen to recruit and retain volunteers?
Yeah, dude, great question. I think recruiting and retaining, sorry, recruit, retrain, and train. I mean,
Indeed.
that's like the most important. I think if you're going to be in ministry, this is what you need to know how to do: recruit, retain, and train. And so,
Absolutely.
and honestly, the best recruiting strategy is one-on-one. It's connecting
Hmm.
with people. If you're not a break the ice with random strangers kind of person, you might find this difficult, hard. But honestly,
Hmm.
it's the ask. We have a next class process for people who want to get plugged in and find their next steps. And so, a lot of churches have could be growth track, whatever you call that next steps process. That's a great funnel, but
Yeah.
the best way is interaction. It's just connecting, inviting people out to lunch.
Hmm.
In kids ministry, I look for moms that are very caring, and I look for dads that I think are cool. And so because I
Absolutely.
want cool dads in my ministry, because I'm gonna have boys that are gonna look at dudes going, man, that guy's cool. I want to be like that guy. And then I get to
Yeah.
know him. I invite him into the process, invite him, and just ask the question, hey, have you ever considered, investing in the lives of the future generation? Let me tell you why. And then the best thing to do is you lead from vision, not from need. There are
Mm.
seasons. There are
Hmm.
seasons in which there might be a need, but if all it ever is need, retaining becomes impossible because they get
Hmm.
burnt out. And so when you lead from vision, that's where people get bought into the vision. They'll follow a leader with a vision anywhere. They'll follow a leader with a need for a season. And so, um, something that we're even as we train our camp up and coming leaders or service coordinators, as we
Hmm.
recruit, we don't recruit from, oh man, I really need you in my twos room because man, I've only got one leader. No, it's, hey, at least for me, what are you passionate about? Can you see yourself leading kids at this age? Man, let me tell you the impact of a mom and dad serving in ministry and their child seeing their parents serve. The impact and multiplication of that kid not only loving being there, but what that does for a family unit when you're all connected and
Hmm.
all serving and you're doing it together. And whether that's in the same ministry or in different ministries at one church, the family is serving together and connecting together. And so your best recruiting strategy is one-on-one. And I think I can't remember who said it once, but it's the hand on the shoulder. Hey,
Uh,
can I talk to you? I'd love to get to know you. And inviting people in from vision.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I like that. I really love what you mentioned is, hey, something really, really powerful happens when everyone in the family is involved, is plugged into ministry. So, yeah, and you talk about leading from vision. So I'm curious, like, I'd love to learn more about your vision. Like, what are some of the short-term and long-term goals that you have and the rest of the folks at Zion City?
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, at Zion City, I oversee one campus at our church, and so we are a church of five
Mhm.
campuses right now. And so
Awesome.
we've got our Pastor Daniel, who oversees our overarching kids ministry, and then each campus might have, short and long term goals for each of their campus. And so, I would say this is something that
Mhm.
I'm going to speak for really my perception and my perspective for my campus right now is that, and I think some of this really correlates to all of our campuses in some different scale. You know, my campus
Mhm.
has 450 people. Our Flowing Wells campus is closer to 3,000. And so
Mhm.
different scopes. So for our campus, short-term goal right now is really kind of leveling up team members who have been serving for some capacity into service coordinators. And so going from being here on a week-to-week basis, whether you're leading a small group or you're leading kids, right, to
Mhm.
now leading teams, which is
Okay.
how we continue to foster leaders who can, it's how I replace myself. It's how I get to church is finding people that can run a service with the authority, the extension of the kids pastor to say, hey, this is what today looks like. You are the oversight, you are the ears, you're the guardian, you are the shepherd of the day. And so it's teaching leaders how to shepherd teams, which is really
Mhm.
how we even maximize how we care for teams, as that's not one person caring for everybody. It's a team caring for a smaller team and then each cascading down. And so as I get service coordinators, I've got three services, so three service coordinators. Each of my coordinators are helping me to care for that team through weekly connections, monthly trainings, one-on-ones, and that's all stuff that I would help resource them. So short-term goal is to really find three service coordinators for one for each of my service that are helping to train and retain and care for each of my services. Long-term goal is to really level up our worship experience in kids ministry. My campus, about 6 months ago, we started doing every other week, partnering with our worship teams, production teams for our big church, their
Yeah.
teams. And so they come every other week and they lead our older elementary in live worship. And so
Mm,
whereas most our kids church has primarily been is, screen worship with lyrics and maybe it's some people dancing on the screen and it's great. It
mhm,
serves its purpose. It's a great resource, but I have just come to believe that the best engagement is when it's led by peers of your own age and adults you
mm,
can watch do it. And so we have partnered with our worship team. And my campus currently is, we're doing this every other week, but really we want to do that at all of our campuses is we have teams leading kids in worship every single
mm.
week in some live expression. Because when they get out of our elementary rooms and they go into students, if all they ever seen is screens and dance motions, they're gonna get to students and have a bit of a culture shock. And we want
Uh,
to be able to build a natural progression and hey, this is what we want it to be like. This is what worship looks like. This is what worship is. And this is how we continue to do it in each setting as they age. And so that'd be a long-term goal.
Perfect. Well, yeah, well, I really like that. I like the progress you're making on that so far. So, uh, I'm curious when it comes to testing out a new innovative approach to ministry, like, full live worship with worship leaders in elementary in some environments. How would you like? What tips would you offer to someone either maybe wanting to start trying that specifically, or just another product or another project that's a little bit different from the standard status quo way of doing things? Like, what tips would you give them for testing it out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And we've got to, again, having multi campuses, there are some things that we've come to realize that might work at Ore Valley that may not work. Again, when
Hmm.
I'm working with 60 kids, I'm working with 60 kids over 4 rooms versus, Flowing Wells has 80 kids in one room,
Yeah.
different scale. And
Hmm.
so for us, I'll just use worship as an example. Um, we're not looking, excellence is in the details. We say that around here, right? Excellence is in the details. And so when it comes
Hmm.
to excellence, we want this to be excellent. It doesn't have to be what Sunday morning big church looks like. It just has to be progress. Hey, what
Hmm.
we had was nothing. And now we have, a 16-year-old leading a guitar. We have a leader playing on keys, and we have a student who sings and an adult who sings at times. Is it perfect? No, it ain't perfect, but it's progress and it's getting better. And they're practicing, and that's getting better. When we launch something like, I'll just use just because I'm talking to you, Playlister, for example.
Yeah.
When we rolled out Playlister, I launched it at our small campus and tested it with smaller teams to go, hey, is this effective? Is this going to work across all campuses? And when it was like greenlit at one campus, I was like, dude, this is going to work everywhere. And then it started with 2 TVs, then went to 6 TVs. Now we're at 12 TV or 10 TVs, whatever we're at now. And so we started small, found how to work it. Another example would be like if you're changing a database system. We went from Fellowship One to PCO several years ago.
Okay.
And so I would encourage people, do a soft launch. Don't just do it all at one time on a Sunday and pull the band-aid. Start on like a Wednesday with smaller numbers and do an invite night, bring families in, cast
Hmm.
vision. When we talk about worship, there's vision behind that. It's not just, hey, we want it to be better. Yeah, we do. I mean, that's the truth. But
Uh,
why do I want leaders who are leading adults in rooms with thousands of people to come lead a room with 15 kids in it? How do I speak to the leader that is used to leading thousands to come lead for
mm,
15? it's, man, wouldn't it be wouldn't someday they might be you. They might be in the platform. You're inspiring, you're encouraging, you are leading. Again, it all comes out of vision. So whatever
Mhm.
you roll out, whatever you're doing, start small and lead with vision.
Oh yeah. Well, I like that. And really like what you said there. Excellence is in the details. So I was kind of curious, what are some additional like core values and things you and your team operate by?
Yeah, great, man. We've got nine
Okay.
like
Wow.
big things. We have it
Yeah.
posted on buildings. We've got it on our website. I mean, every week we have huddles in whatever serve team we're
Mhm.
in, and we rotate those nine. Our staff meetings monthly are we focus on one every month. And so, present centered, we say it's, God is number one. God is our one. It's the focus. So every meeting praying first. And no matter what you're doing,
Mhm.
no matter how small a meeting, prayer first because we are present centered. We say passion is what we're in. Passion is we're going to go all in. And whatever you're doing, show passion in the small stuff, show passion in the big things. There isn't a single area anywhere on any of our serve teams that you can't be passionate in. So passion. We say people matter, and that's honor in all directions. Honor up, honor down, all or all around. People matter, and when you live that, they feel that. Again, our students ministry says it's seen, known, and loved, and so they will feel like they matter if you see them, if you know them, and if you love them. We say
100%.
generosity, and this is one of my favorites. Is if this wasn't have liquid in it, but we say generosity is our cup poured out, right? And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
we want to live with our cups poured out. Um,
Mm.
the Holy Spirit is who filled us, is who fills us. It's not serving, it's not ministry, it's not things. God fills our buckets so that we can live our lives
Absolutely.
generously, pouring them out. He is our provider. One of our passions is health, and for health we say mind your gauges, thinking like the engine light
Mhm.
on a car, right? It's an indicator. It's something there. Um, we live that out through like we call tribes. We have every other week we meet in core tribes where we get to just kind of talk. Hey, how you feeling? What you going through? What do you need?
Mm.
Healthy nutrients. And so we lead that. We lead by example as a staff, as a pastoral staff, as a staff, and then we cascade that even into our serve teams. Is health. It
Mm.
matters because if you're not healthy, you're not healthy health mindset, you get burnt out, and we don't want that to happen to any leader, serve team, or staff member. We say relationships that we're better together, and how we
Absolutely.
treat one another matters. And so, if it's not about me, it's about us.
Mm.
And so, relationships, future generations. This is my favorite. Not being a real tall guy is we say no height requirement, or
Okay.
no junior Holy Spirit, right? So we're all about future
Absolutely.
generations, and future generations isn't necessarily, hey, make sure we're leading young people. It's, hey, we want to bridge the older generation with the younger generation because they've got something to teach us and they've got something to learn. And we want to bridge this. It should be a highway back and forth. We're learning and receiving from one another.
Mm.
And so the last thing is, excellence is in the details. We go to the extra mile. Whatever we do, we're going to do it in excellence. And so that's our 9 core beliefs, principles. We call them distinctives, but that's what defines us as a church.
Perfect. Well, yeah, well, really like those. And yeah, it's great too because, the way you just rattled all those off there, I bet everyone is very aligned on the vision you're talking about. Hey, we got them posted everywhere. So having those core values, keeping everyone aligned is so important. And, shifting gears a little bit, wanted to kind of go back into more of the like tactical kids ministry advice where you're talking a bit about, what you're doing with live worship one Sunday a month in elementary spaces. Like, what are some other things you have done to just create engaging experiences in kids ministry as Zion City?
Yeah, it's interesting because kids are different these days.
They are.
I think about being in kids ministry as long as I've been in kids ministry. Kids in the last 2 years have just shifted. I
Mm.
believe it's absolutely the post COVID times,
Mm-hmm.
and kids are more distracted. They're less engaged. They're harder to keep focused. Also,
Mm-hmm.
you got so many kids being diagnosed with some alphabet letter these days that, excuse
Ah.
me, that that you're constantly trying to figure out, oh man, how do I cater to this, and how do I do this? And a big way we help that is starting and ending in small groups,
Mm-hmm.
keeping kids engaged to a leader in a smaller setting. There's so many kids these days that, I mean, have some kind of social anxiety or large group settings and they close up. But having that small group allows the kids to engage with an adult or some kind of leader at a more personal
Mm-hmm.
level, which gives them more buy-in because somebody sees them. They're not just a number in the crowd. Some other things that we've been rolling out, at least at my campus, is like behavior cards. So it kind of old school, kind of going back to some old school things because it's a basic principle, and so we're just awarding great behavior,
Okay.
and we keep it that way. And so another thing we started doing is doing like class, hey, if everyone's like, we'll build collect like these little rocks towards giving. So
Mm-hmm.
if they bring in giving, we have a goal in mind. If we get this goal after so much, we get to the top of this little tower thing, then we'll do a pizza party on a Sunday for all the kids at all services. This is an all included thing. Not just a boys
Awesome.
versus girls. This is everyone together. And so just creating more buy-in. Hey, you bring your Bible, that gets to go in there. You memorize the scripture verse, that goes in there. And it's helping kids talk about it more than just on Sunday because they already
Mm-hmm.
come in Sunday pretty distracted. And then if it's, we went from a season from being all screen based to being no screens to trying to find the balance of the two because there's a healthy balance. And
Mm-hmm.
really, I would say like object lessons are key. Any type of thing that you can keep to draw kids in, acting it out, skits, puppets. Honestly, kids love puppets.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's super lame, even if you put a puppet on your hand and talk to it like that, like kids will love it. Wouldn't
Yeah.
recommend that for like your 10, 11, 12-year olds. They might be like, this is super lame. But some of them will be like, can I be the puppet? Absolutely, you could be the puppet. Come up here, I'll talk to you. So it's just, and it's getting them involved, bringing them in to what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. This even just this last week, and we were talking about how God's plan is something we can trust. And we had several
Mm-hmm.
kids building Legos and follow the instructions. And like God's given us instructions for our life. And then at the end, we didn't keep the Legos. We gave it to them. They got to take them home. And so not
Okay.
only did they participate, they got to take it home. And they go home that day going, oh my gosh, I got this Lego set in kids' church. I mean, it was like a $2 Lego set. I think we got it at the dollar store or the $1.50 store now, whatever it is these days.
Yeah.
And so and that's just some things that we're learning. Honestly, it's a revolving door right now, just trying to
Mm-hmm.
navigate the ins and outs of how different kids are, and scalability. So what I'm finding at our campus is working in these ways, and we're trying to find that same similar expression at different campuses. And how do we maximize this with more kids? And every service is a little different, but small groups has been probably the number one biggest draw for children to be connected. Because, like health, we actually bring that
Mm-hmm.
same thing into those groups. Hey, what was your rose? What was your thorn this week? Hey, what's bothering you this week? And what's something we can celebrate with you in? And so, creating an environment where they have a safe place to share whatever's going on in their life.
Absolutely. Well, that is great, and I appreciate the ideas there, and a lot of good stuff there, Kenny. And I appreciate you so much for sharing so much today. I'm curious, like, what other advice do you have for kids ministry leaders?
Man, if I could say anything, it's don't get discouraged. The kids
Absolutely.
ministry can feel like kids ministry can feel like an island, like you're on
Hmm.
your own island, and it's so unfortunate that we can get so siloed, but that's not how it's supposed to be.
Nope.
And we actually have to fight harder oftentimes to be connected. And so I would just say fight. Like you got to fight for it, and stay connected with the youth leaders, stay connected with the leadership, invite families to do life with. Again, we're better together. That's not just a Zion City thing. That's a Christian thing. Like Jesus lived it, and we should too. If you're isolated, you're doing something wrong. And so find ways to stay connected, be connected, and invite people into what you're doing because it's so much more fun and way better when you don't feel alone. And if you feel alone, do that, man. Reach out to somebody. Don't live on the island. It's not meant to be for you. It's meant to be joined together. And so I think right now that, and I say that because I've seen so many different posts over the last year or 2 years of going like, man, it just feels like I'm all alone. What do I?
Mm,
I've been there. I've been there.
mm.
I've lived it. And at times I still feel it. And when I'm feeling it, it's a reminder that I need to reach out and stay connected to my peers and to other staff and say, hey man, can we go to lunch? Can we do something? Um, and it's good for you. So that's probably my advice for the moment.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that. So, yeah, we truly are better together, Kenny. And thank you so much for sharing so much.
Yeah, man.